Bueller, 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 Bueller.
My dad has been reciting that scene like scripture for as long as I can remember. Any opportunity he gets to say it, he takes. Despite this constant reminder of the film, I hadn't watched Ferris Bueller's Day Off for as long as I could remember. So what better time than now? Having rewatched it recently, there is one thing I can say for sure. Man, they do not make them like this anymore. Full disclosure, I had a brief history of comedy lined up here, detailing its origins in ancient Greece to Charlie Chaplin and the modern era. It didn't quite seem conducive to the conversation I will be having, and as fun as it would be, I simply did not have the time for it. With that said, let's take a look into what defines the teen comedy subgenre. Starting more broadly, the Merriam-Webster Dictionary describes comedy as a drama of light and amusing character, typically with a happy ending. An alternate definition suggests comedy to be a ludicrous or farcical event or series of events, which certainly seems reflective of modern cinema. IMDb describes the teen comedy subgenre as a comedy that is specifically targeted toward a teenage audience. These comedies typically revolve around the lives, experiences, and challenges of teenagers, often exploring themes related to high school, friendship, romance, identity, and the ups and downs of adolescence. Katherine Driscoll, the author of Teen Film, A Critical Introduction, expands on the elements of teen film. She says, teen film is generally thought more interesting for what it says about youth than for any aesthetic innovations, is represented as closely tied to the historical changing experience of adolescence. There are certainly narrative conventions that help define teen film, the youthfulness of central characters, content usually centered on young heterosexuality, frequently with a romance plot, intense age-based peer relationships and conflict, either within those relationships or with an older generation. The institutional management of adolescence by families, schools, and other institutions, and coming-of-age plots focus on motifs like virginity, graduation, and makeover. Driscoll also references Robert Benioun's list of normal qualities of youth: naivety, idealism, humor, hatred of tradition, erotomania, and a sense of injustice. She finds that in addition to typical narrative conventions, character types, and form elements, like the incorporation of contemporary popular culture, there's a sensibility to teen film, and the sensibility explains why neither its subject matter nor its appeal is confined to teenagers. So while Driscoll is speaking broadly here about teen films, she ultimately encapsulates all that makes up the teen comedy subgenre. That does present one question, however, which I care to focus on. If teen comedies are all of these things and appeal to far more than a limited demographic of teenagers, why is the genre dying? Through this background, a retrospective on teen comedies of the 1980s, and evidence from the modern landscape, I hope to answer that question. With all that out of the way, let's finally dig into the fun stuff.
This is getting good.
I feel the need to preface this part of the discussion by saying that I was never all that much into movies growing up outside of Star Wars. Actually, I would argue that I wasn't all that much into movies for the first 18 years of my life. Since seeing Star Wars return to theaters with The Force Awakens in 2015, I did not return to a movie theater for 8 years. What a mistake that was. I started trying to make up for all the lost ground last year when I was not in school for health concern, problem, issue thing. Watching a few of the films for this video specifically really gave me that holy shit, this existed and I've been missing out the whole time feeling. And no movie stuck with me more than Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which I have seen as a kid, just never revisited. So that will be the focal point of my discussion. It is also probably fair to say that it's the pinnacle of the teen comedy subgenre, especially for the 80s, so it's only right. Ferris Bueller's Day Off follows the titular character and his two friends, Cameron and Sloan, as they skip school to do anything to their heart's content.
The question isn't what are we going to do, the question is what aren't we going to do.
The dean of students, Edward Rooney, attempts to catch Ferris out of school as he has it out for him and deems him a bad influence for the 1,500 other students in the school. While Rooney can easily be identified as the antagonist of the story, the conflict he creates isn't actually a driving force of the plot. The pressure to return home before his parents notice that Ferris is gone isn't necessarily it either. It can actually be attributed to Ferris's friend, Cameron. Cameron's insecurity and fear is actually the main source of conflict in the film.
Pardon my French, but Cameron is so tight that if you stuck a lump of coal up his ass, in 2 weeks you'd have a diamond.
He grounds the story and is the perfect foil to Ferris's on-top-of-the-world personality. Throughout their adventures, he's constantly questioning Ferris's decisions and willingness to do anything he pleases. After all, they're not where they should be, and doing things they should not be doing. On the way home, Ferris realizes that the mileage on the speedometer of Cameron's father's Ferrari has increased drastically, resulting in Cameron to have a minor panic attack. In an attempt to get Cameron to relax, the friends they take him to a pool where Cameron seemingly attempts to drown himself. Ferris pulls him out, and Cameron jokingly remarks, "Ferris Bueller, you're my hero." The preceding scene cements this line as reality and not as a joke. While they're attempting to reverse the mileage on the Ferrari, Cameron tells Ferris and Sloane that this is the best day of his life and that he's going to miss them next year. After the group realizes that their plan to reverse the mileage on the Ferrari is not working, Cameron vows to take a stand against his father and not be afraid of him anymore. Ferris and Sloane watch as he kicks up the car before accidentally forcing it to reverse out of the garage and off of a cliff. Ferris attests that he'll take the heat for it, but Cameron holds his ground. All of the angst and build-up from Cameron's character creates has such an extreme payoff. In the beginning of the movie, Cameron envies Ferris's ability to do whatever he pleases and allows people to walk all over him. In the last scene of them together, they share their first sincere moment as friends in the film, but Cameron's inspired by Ferris instead and is willing to let go of his fear. There are a couple other moments I wanted to highlight throughout the movie as well. The short conversation between Cameron and Sloane while Ferris is on the parade float is so genuine and real for young people trying to find their place in the world.
I don't know what I'm gonna do.
College.
Yeah, but to do what?
What are you interested in?
Nothing.
Me neither.
And in the art museum, Cameron's blank stare into the painting as he relates to the wailing child who is being ignored is very powerful as well. The frame continuously pans back and forth between Cameron and the painting, progressively zooming into the canvas and Cameron's expression. This is reflective of his inner conflict and existential crisis. Towards the end of the film, Jeannie, Ferris' sister, feels alienated by her parents as they focus all of their attention on Ferris and deem him an angel. She attempts to catch Ferris out of school, but while she's sitting in the police station, she has a conversation with a man who says she needs someone to talk to. He's not exactly build up his credibility by saying he's in there for drugs, but he tells her frankly that she should not be concerned with what her brother is doing. She needs to worry more about herself. Although she is initially appalled by his input, she takes it to heart and backs up Ferris when he's confronted by Rooney at the end of the movie.
So you're pissed off because he ditches and doesn't get caught, is that it?
Basically.
Basically. And your problem is you.
Excuse me?
Excuse you. You ought to spend a little more time dealing with yourself, a little less time worrying about what your brother does. That's just an opinion.
All of these characters and moments encapsulate the adolescent experience so well, addressing many of the elements that Driscoll mentions in her book. The messages are not certainly limited to teenagers either, although they are more likely to relate to the context surrounding it. And the fourth wall breaks throughout the film attest to that. And Ferris's final message is the greatest of them all.
Yep. I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Films have become so intrinsically tied to our culture that I think some people might not even consider why something is being made, and they just defer to accept its existence. And with some of the movies being made nowadays, I suppose that is a fair strategy. But back to my point. As we discussed earlier, teen comedy films have an obligation and a message about the experience of adolescence. This is what makes them so important to their target audience. Various studies corroborate this impact that films have on the youth, and other studies also suggest that the alternative means to films are damaging but inescapable in the current landscape. Yale Medicine found that American teens aged 12 to 15 who use social media over 3 hours a day each face twice the risk of having negative mental health outcomes, including depression and anxiety symptoms. They also found that excessive use of social media can harm teens by disrupting important healthy behaviors. It's been linked to sleep problems, attention problems, and feelings of exclusion in adolescence. In a journal for Clemson University, David Barrett found that although the day-to-day experiences of adolescents are different today than they were a generation ago, the emotional needs of the adolescent are the same. This signifies the continued importance of teen stories. A study done looking at the adolescent depictions of recent popular coming-of-age movies found these modern films are incongruent with what real-world adolescents experience, due to the older actors not being fit to accurately represent teenagers, and the focus on aspirational narratives as opposed to realistic ones. So while Ferris Bueller hit the nail on the head, many modern installations of teen comedy and teen films fall short of accurately appealing to the teenage demographic. Not only is there evidence of modern coming-of-age stories failing to relate to its intended audience, but as for the teen comedy subgenre specifically, there's just simply less of them. Take this data from numbers.com. Comedy just simply does not sell, at least according to market share. Above all of the other factors that I alluded to before that contribute to why a movie may get made, money is unequivocally the driver and plays a big part in why teen comedies are not popular. Truthfully, I struggle to grasp a compelling counter to this discussion. I suppose the most simple argument would be that adolescents simply don't need teen comedies anymore, and to a degree they've been replaced. Nothing quite hits all the beats as those films do, but in the aggregate, there's more than enough media that contributes to the development of adolescence. Also, while teen comedy as a genre itself is largely dissipated, coming-of-age stories are going nowhere. They will always exist, and there are plenty of good ones still being made that also happen to be funny. As for social media specifically, the studies I referenced earlier also detail the positive effects it can have on the youth. It allows to build positive connections and allow for self-expression. You build social networks or support other people who have hobbies or experiences in common, and humorous or distracting media may help a struggling teen cope with a challenging day. Another angle to this could also be that these films were crude and ineffective, or even encourage negative behavior from youth. Molly Ringwald starred in 3 of John Hughes' teen comedies from the 80s, but questioned her roles years later, citing the sexism, racism, and homophobia of the time. Senior research scientist Amy Bleakley says that teenagers see characters having a good time without any negative consequences in regards to how media and peers influence youth behavior. This is true of teen comedy specifically, as the repercussions of poor actions are virtually never explored. So after all of that discussion, where does that leave us? I believe the sustained erasure of teen comedy to be a matter of economics. The 2 things that you need above all else to produce a motion picture is a story and money. Addressing the former first, there's plainly just not that many unique high schooler stories to tell. The opportunity for a unique and compelling story in that setting is extremely limited. It's probably already been told a million times. So that's one. As for the latter, comedies simply do not make enough money. The demand isn't there, and following the modern trend, any comedy sequels are largely unsuccessful because you can't do the same thing twice, but if you differ too much, why is it even a sequel? Those 2 factors contribute to very few teen comedies popping up every once in a while, and they certainly aren't culture shockers like Superbad. In my opinion, if you don't like teen comedies,
Pardon my French, but you're an asshole.
Unfortunately for me, and many others out there though, I don't see a route to their return in this technologically dominated age. But if you're ever feeling overwhelmed by the fakeness and inhumanities of the world, all I can do is suggest that you tune into a film specifically of the teen comedy subgenre. Teenagers could certainly use it nowadays. There's something about humans and relating to real-world experiences.
They live for that shit.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.